Have you ever looked back at a relationship and thought, how did I allow that for so long? Not out of weakness, not because you didn't know better, but because somewhere along the road you learned to confuse dysfunction with love. If you're over 40, maybe you've spent decades giving people second chances, being the understanding one, the patient one, the one who let things slide for the sake of peace. But what if I told you? Some of your deepest emotional wounds didn't come from what was done to you. They came from what you tolerated. Today, we're going to explore 10 behaviors, subtle, socially normalized, even wrapped in kindness, that Carl Jung, through his understanding of the human psyche, would urge us never to accept. These aren't just toxic traits. They are slow poisons that erode your sense of self, spirit, and sovereignty. And here's the truth. Midlife is not the time to keep tolerating. It's the time to wake up, to name what has harmed you, to reclaim your emotional dignity. So if you've ever questioned whether you were overreacting, stay with me, because maybe you weren't overreacting at all. Maybe you were awakening. Let's begin. Behavior 1. Emotional guilt as love. If you really loved me, you'd understand. Emotional manipulation often doesn't look like abuse. It looks like someone sighing heavily when you speak your needs. It looks like guilt wrapped in concern. One woman I worked with, Susan, spent 30 years in a marriage where every time she asserted a boundary, she was met with silence, sulking, or coldness. She told me, "I stopped asking for anything, it just wasn't worth the emotional fallout." Carl Jung believed that when we deny our inner truth, the soul falls ill. And Susan wasn't too sensitive. She was simply losing her connection to herself. If love requires you to silence your voice, it isn't love. It's emotional control. Behavior 2. Honesty as a weapon. I'm just being honest. But is it truth or cruelty dressed in clarity? Constructive truth nurtures. But when someone repeatedly uses honesty to cut you down, mock your efforts, or belittle your past, it stops being truth. It becomes contempt. Jung emphasized that the psyche requires affirmation, not erosion. In families and long marriages, contempt often replaces curiosity. That's not maturity, it's emotional laziness. Behavior 3. Control masquerading as protection. I just want what's best for you. Sometimes this is true care, but often, especially from a controlling partner or parent, it's disguised fear. True love doesn't cage you, it expands you. When someone limits your choices in the name of love, what they're really expressing is their own unresolved shadow. In midlife, especially for women, this shows up as being discouraged from changing careers, being protected from taking a solo trip, having dreams called unrealistic. Jung would say this is the shadow projecting its anxiety onto another's growth. Behavior 4. Gaslighting. Rewriting your reality. When you start questioning your memory, your perceptions, even your sanity, chances are someone has been chipping away at your inner compass. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous psychological tactics because it erodes your trust in yourself. Michael, a 62-year-old teacher, once told me, "After 25 years of marriage, I began to feel like I was always wrong, even when I knew I was right." Jung taught that everything that irritates us about others can lead to understanding ourselves, but gaslighting hijacks that process and leaves you dependent on someone else to define what's real. Behavior 5. Dismissal of your inner world. If you share a dream, an idea, or a joy, and someone constantly diminishes it with sarcasm or silence, you're not in a relationship, you're in emotional exile. Jung insisted that we must integrate the authentic self. But that self withers in environments where expression is unsafe. A viewer once wrote to us, "I stopped painting because my partner always joked about my silly little hobby." That's not love, it's spiritual suffocation. Behavior 6. Chronic lack of empathy. Empathy is not optional. It is the oxygen of emotional connection. Yet many long-term relationships fall into this dry emotional terrain, where one person is constantly expected to understand while the other gives nothing in return. Jung said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power." A lack of empathy is not love. It is the assertion of dominance through neglect. If your emotions are treated like inconveniences, you're not being loved. You're being used. Behavior 7. The apology loop. Betrayal without change. An apology repeated without change becomes manipulation. I'm sorry, I'll do better, but nothing changes, and soon you start normalizing the betrayal. Jung noted, there is no coming to consciousness without pain, but that pain must lead to growth, not repetition. Relationships built on false peace trap you in emotional limbo. Behavior 8. Selfishness disguised as independence. They say, I don't need anyone, but somehow, you're always the one calling, planning, carrying the weight. True independence invites connection. False independence avoids responsibility. One-sided devotion where your efforts are invisible slowly teaches you that love is earned through exhaustion. Behavior 9. Sarcasm as a weapon. Relax, it's just a joke. But you don't laugh. You feel small. Sarcasm is often passive-aggressive cruelty, especially in long-term dynamics. Jung believed what is unspoken becomes projected. Sarcasm is unspoken resentment, wrapped in humor. If you're constantly the butt of the joke, you're not being loved. You're being diminished. Behavior 10. Emotional withdrawal as punishment. The silent treatment. The unanswered calls, the cold stare. This isn't maturity, it's emotional punishment. Jung described this as regression into the shadow, a retreat into the unconscious where words are replaced by walls. True connection requires dialogue. Withdrawal, when weaponized, isn't about space, it's about power. So why do we tolerate these things? Because we were conditioned to. Because our childhood wounds taught us that love must be earned through sacrifice. Because we thought being nice meant being silent. But Carl Jung's work reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is not fate, this is conditioning. And midlife, your 40s, 50s, 60s, is not too late. It's the perfect moment to turn inward, shine the light, and say, this is not mine to carry anymore. You don't need to carry shame for what you tolerated. What matters now is what you choose from here. Start small, recognize the pattern, name it, set a limit, and most importantly, reconnect with your inner truth. Your soul was never meant to shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. Carl Jung didn't write to judge others. He wrote to help us see ourselves clearly, compassionately, and courageously. So today, ask yourself, what have I been calling love that's actually pain? And then ask, what would it look like to choose clarity over chaos? You deserve that clarity. If this message spoke to something deep inside you, you are not alone. We created this channel, Inner Eye's Journey, as a space for emotional renewal and soulful reflection. Drop a comment below. Tell us what hit home for you. Or simply write, I choose clarity over chaos. Like this video, and subscribe for more Jungian-inspired insights. And share it with someone you care about. It might be the message they've been waiting for. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.